Hi everyone, Adrian Groenewald here. Welcome to Global Leadership Platform. And of course, it's our Global Leadership Conversation 1 project. All over the world, I've been interviewing leaders on all the continents about our global leadership crisis, asking them 2 simple questions. And today I've got Andre Vermeulen, who works across several continents. He's from Neuro-Link. He's the founder of Neuro-Link. He's a neuro-agility thought leader, TEDx speaker, and would have very strong views about what is the top quality we need in order to turn around this leadership crisis. But Andre, very welcome to the Global Leadership Platform.
Hi, Adrian. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to share the passion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm finding so many fantastic people across the world. I don't want to call them experts, but certainly influencers in the leadership space. We need to start speaking with more passion and, more influence around these issues. So Andre, the first question, of course, is what is the most important quality or attribute we need to develop or awaken or improve in leaders if we are going to turn around this global leadership crisis? What's your number 1 vote?
My number 1 vote, Adrian, would definitely be to be agile leaders. The world is in a leadership crisis, and the reason for it is I think we have not seen enough examples of what true values-driven leaders are, who have the mental flexibility to adapt and adjust to disruptive change and to have the vision to move into those spaces, to create new spaces where and enter territories that has never been explored before, and to be able to think and adapt and adjust and to learn, relearn, multi-skill, unlearn, depending on what the situation requires of you in that new space, in order to still make a difference and to progressively move the organization forward. Now, if one looks at the World Economic Forum's most desired skills for the workplace, they can roughly be categorized into 2 groups. The one group are brain power skills like complex problem solving, decision-making, critical thinking, creativity, and also cognitive flexibility. On the other side, you have skills that can all roughly be categorized in the framework of emotional intelligence skills. So those are, except for our technical abilities, but the more we become leaders, the more the so-called soft skills, which actually should be called the hard skills because they are so difficult to do, should be developed. Now, the world constantly talks about agile organizations, agile people, agile HR, learning agility. They talk a lot about leadership agility. But the bottom line is agility means fast, easy, and flexible. And for leaders to be able to move easy and fast and have the mental flexibility to adapt and adjust to new systems and new technology and new everything to adapt to disruptive change, they need to optimize their neuro-agility, because the factors that influences the ease and speed with which we learn, think, and process information firstly starts in the brain as such. And therefore, leaders have to make themselves a priority, look inwards, and ask themselves, but how agile am I as a leader? To perhaps just illustrate this to the viewers, as you are looking at me, I am just clapping my hand, and if they are looking at this video, just clap your hand, cross over, touch your nose and your ear, and then switch over to the other side. Now, when people do this simple movement activity, you will realize that in the first place, you have to think what you must do, and perhaps it's not that easy to do. Now, it's not easy, it is not fast, and it shows that we are not that flexible. So our brain determines the ease, the speed, and flexibility with which we think, learn, and create. And I truly believe that leaders have to start with themselves, optimizing their own personal agility first, and then apply that into the workplace. Imitative learning is the most powerful form of learning. So we become what we know by looking around us. So a boy becomes a man by looking at the example of his father, but people in the workplace become leaders by looking at the leaders above them. And we look at their example, and then we choose do we want to follow that or not? And unfortunately, I don't believe there is too much evidence in our world today of having servant leaders, values-driven leaders, and obviously to be those two, it starts with being an agile leader.
Okay, so your number one quality is to be an agile leader. You've touched on a few things. In terms of the second question is, how do we best develop, awaken, or improve this quality of being an agile leader? But maybe just expand a little bit, 1 minute, 2 minutes, of how do we develop such leaders? I mean, is it simple? Does it come naturally? Obviously, for some people, it will be more natural, I would guess. But if you take 10 leaders and you've got to teach them to be more agile, what do you do?
Yeah, good question, Adrian. And the thing is, when we look at leadership, it is a quality that we have to develop. It's not just a quality that people are born with. Anyone can learn sufficient skills to be an emotionally intelligent leader. We are not born with values. So if we want to become values-driven leaders, we choose certain values, we embrace them, and as we develop, we over years, that value becomes stronger and we become leaders who drive certain values. So leadership, to me, is a developed ability. But therefore, if we want to be agile leaders, we have to, one, start with ourselves. Now, obviously, I come from a more neuroscience perspective. That's the space in which we play. And therefore, if we want to display certain behavior, it means we have to internalize that ourselves first. And that means you need to look inwards and develop yourself. But you cannot improve what you cannot measure. So therefore, we have to look inwards and try and measure the qualities that influences the ease and speed and flexibility with which we think, learn, and process information. Once we are accurately aware of where we are at, then we can also know how we should be developing ourselves further. So agility is not a quick fix. Whenever you look at the brain, there are no quick fixes, and I'm usually very skeptical if I hear people offering quick fixes, because although there can sometimes be some short-term immediate changes, most changes happens in the medium to long term with regards to the brain, and that's how the process of neuroplasticity works also. But in a nutshell, leaders will have to optimize the drivers that impact their performance, their brain performance. That means they have to develop drivers like their personal brain agility, like the example that I just displayed, which consists of physical and mental activities that we have to continuously do to flex mental muscle. But then we also need to look at, for instance, stress coping mechanisms and our sleeping patterns, because that influences the brain's alertness, and stress and sleep has a big impact on the chemicals that drive your mind and provides a leader with mental alertness. So obviously from this, diet and mindset and things like movement are also very important. So there are many lifestyle issues that is essential, that has to be part of our leadership skill set that will impact the ease and speed with which we process information. But another leg of agility is about understanding your neurological design. We can all be leaders, but we are different types of leaders, and we impact in different types of spaces. Einstein was an influencer in the world of science. Nelson Mandela was an influencer in the world of politics. But we talk about two people who had very, very different personalities, but they impacted the world with the specific gifts that they had. So we need to become accurate with what our neurological design dictate about the gifts and the talents and the intelligence preferences and the qualities that we have, because a true leader is supposed to make those qualities that they naturally have been equipped with available for the benefit of those people that they are responsible for. So to give you an example, if we talk about neurological design, it means I need to understand how my laterality influences my thinking preferences. So if we look at our design, it will influence how we will approach problem solving. So we can all solve problems, but in very different ways based on our neurological design. We can all be critical thinkers, but for some, it is a natural default, and for others, it will be a developed ability. If we look at creativity, all people have been made with a right hemisphere that can be very innovative and creative, but it's not just an ability that you are born with, it is a capacity that has to be amplified, that has to be developed. But it starts with you, and it starts with what are my natural preferences, tendencies, talents, and gifts, and then which ones need to be developed further in order for me to maximum impact the space in which I am influencing.
Andre Vermeulen, I could talk to you all day. I can see you know your bacon, you know your game, and I think you've put your voice out there, preferably or more specifically, that the number one quality is to be agile leaders. That's what we need to turn around the global leadership crisis. You've given us good food for thought when it comes to how to develop it, but it's clear it's not a simple thing. I'm hoping that organizations will develop and invest long enough in what's needed for leaders to develop their specific agile abilities. And we look forward to having other global leadership conversations with you. Thank you for spending time with us today. We really appreciate it.
It is indeed a pleasure to share the passion, so thanks for having me, Andre.
Andre, you're based in South Africa, but you do work across to the US and other places. I do ask leaders at the end of a conversation what's interesting about the city in which they live and why should people visit it, just to throw out a bit of a geographical reminder of our global leadership conversation. Do you want to say something about that?
Yes, you know, I stayed in the United States for a while, and I am back in South Africa. I'm working, our offices are in Pretoria, and Pretoria is a fantastic place. It's a big city, but sometimes you do still here and there get the feeling of, you know, being a more like a town rather than a city. And I, for one, like that. But obviously, we have a world. Pretoria is also a world inside South Africa that is also very multicultural, multinational, and so forth. And I think, you know, what I love about Africa, it has its own beauty and its own languages, its own culture. And having been abroad for so long, you know, if you've been brought up in this type of culture, but also this beautiful physical environment, you know, you just love everything that you see, the scenery, the people. When I stayed abroad, I would often say to people, you know, if I can only see a thorn tree again, then I know I'm home. And thorn trees, I love nature. And, you know, we have very unique plants that you only get in Africa, and my garden is full of those cycads that are very unique to what you'll only find in Africa, and specifically in Southern Africa. Thorn trees and cycads is part of the mix of, you know, it's sort of part of, I feel, sometimes my spirit.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Andre Vermeulen, joining us for our Hash Global Leadership Conversation 1 and on Global Leadership Platform. All the best.
Thank you, Adrian. Much appreciated.